I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
Rika talked about who wants to be involved for that long, who wants to be in power. And he talked about the baby boomers. Really, the people who are just as annoying are those older Gen Xers. Now, Lav and I are Gen X, but we fall into that line where it's like we're younger Gen X. And so they call them like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they call it like Zennials, right? So it's like, we kind of have some of the traits of millennials, but we still are Gen X too. We were raised by boomers. But those older Gen X, they've always been a terrible fucking generation, in my personal opinion. I got a bunch in my family. Entitled, just problematic. So when you look at, and Jim Clyburn's daughter, 64 years old. Her name is, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Mignon, so Mignon or whatever.
Something like that.
Whatever it is. I don't want to disrespect the sister's name, but I just don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
But she's 64.
And you just that's too old to be coming into.
Now, 64 is not old. It's older, but it's not decrepit.
When you're legally mandated to start taking your Social Security at 65, then come on, 64 is old.
Okay. So, I agree with you in terms of being in the workforce, but in terms of life, 64 is not.
This is the workforce.
64, you're still relatively young.
Yeah, but
this is when people start retiring.
These people are this is the workforce, though. This is their job.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but you have to have uniformity. The law doesn't allow us to treat people differently. So it's not like we could be like, oh, you know what I mean? You gotta prove that you're still with it at 64, 65. Because then they can be like, well, this test is unfair and it's not equal and it's not even and all this other stuff. No, we just got to do one age. You still young at heart, baby. We understand. You still got all your mental faculties, but we got to protect the rest of the country from these other people that are 65 and have been smoking and doing coke for the last 30 years. So we have to do it. We have to have a strict age limit, term limits, age limits, all of that, because these people are literally dying in office, literally traveling with nurses and just dying slowly every day in these political offices and barely showing up to make major decisions. And we're all suffering for it. And nobody's really talking about it. It's insane to me that nobody's really talking about how these people are just allowing the country to just go to shit because they don't want to give up their power. And for what?
But that's also incumbent upon, I think, millennials as well, because, I look at some of the people that I know. Okay, so in our fraternity, me and Lad's fraternity, we just had our 60th reunion. And, you need people to mentor the younger Gen Z. What is it, Gen Z? Then what's after Gen Z? Gen Alpha. I think these kids are in college now are Gen Z. Right. So we need people to step up, mentor them, start taking over some of the duties that we're doing. And it's always been a problem in organizations with older people not wanting to give up power to the younger folks. Now, good organizations mentor, develop, and groom, right, their bench so that they can come up and, be ready to say, hey, listen, next man up. Let's take it to the next level. But a lot of that generation isn't really interested in being involved.
Yeah.
They're the generation that says oh, Republican, Democrat, same damn thing. No, it's not. On a very base level, you could say, okay, Republican, Democrat, same thing. But I didn't see the Democrats coming after our insurance. I didn't see the Democrats trying to raise the price of insulin. Matter of fact, Biden tried to lower it. I didn't see them targeting government jobs, basically going after Black women to penalize Black women because nobody hates Republicans more than Black women.
Yeah.
So when you sit there and say, oh, it doesn't matter, and it's prevalent in that generation, It don't matter who you vote for. It does matter. And I just don't see, and maybe it's because I just don't know a lot of white people or others like that, and they're not on my algorithm. I don't see them saying, hey, voting don't matter.
I mean,
Yeah,
but that's part of it.
yeah. I'm not sure either because they're like you said, they're not on my algorithm, so I don't know. So yeah, yeah.
But
But
I doubt they say that stupid shit. Because here's the thing. What I know about white people is even now, not all of them, right? I'm not going to generalize. There's some that speak out. There's some that are allies. But generally speaking, even if they know something is messed up, they know not to put the benefits that they get from being white in jeopardy. So even if they don't necessarily endorse or vote for it or allow proponents for it, they know just to be quiet. And what if me and C always said, just be quiet. Get out the damn way.
But that goes
yes.
back to the self-preservation thing. Everybody is looking out for their own interests. So
Mhm.
they're not going to vote for something that doesn't benefit them or matter of fact affects them or to the detriment. You know, just like the Republicans and the Democrats that are 85, 80, 83 in office. They're doing the
Which
exact same thing.
But it's not voting to our benefit.
No. I'm just saying you were
No,
talking
I'm
about
not saying that
the
you're saying
white
it, but
people.
I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
It's not
no,
voting to our benefit. It's not. It's to our detriment.
No.
But we
Right.
keep having people promote that silly shit, and I don't understand why.
but that goes back to our personal accountability though, because I don't care what the white people are doing. I don't want to use any of
Yeah.
their methods to do anything because in the end, it's not going to work out for them. But with these young people, we have to be involved with them more. A lot of them are listening to whatever they find on TikTok and running with it, and they don't have anybody coming in and saying, "Hey, here's a little bit of common sense. If you just apply it, it'll take you a long way." But like you said, common sense is not that common. And these young people, especially the ones that are literally getting all of their information just from TikTok and don't have anything else to bounce it off of historically or, from other sources of information. And they don't have anyone saying, hey, let's use some critical thinking here. Let's think about this a different way. Or let's look at this specific situation that we have right here where this bill passed by one vote. Like this literally shows you that voting matters, but there is that on TikTok? I don't know. Can they find it? I don't know. But with resources like mentors or, our involvement with these young people, whatever they are, Gen Z, then I mean, I think that's the only way that we're gonna get over this whole grand rising, voting doesn't matter, whatever misinformation, disinformation that's out there that, they're latching onto because I think for them, part of it, the older people not getting out of the way, not helping them up, not pulling them up, not showing them the way. A lot of people have gotten like, unexcited about moving
Right.
forward or moving up. And you said they're making lateral moves because they don't have connections in these companies. They don't have connections really to anybody that's showing them, this is how you're going to progress. This is how you're going to move forward. And if we can bring that back, then I think we can bring back the enthusiasm for taking on these positions. But why would I get excited about running for office when the dude is going to die in office at 90 years old? Sure, I'm going to be 60 by the time this dude decides to retire. And I don't want to work in office at 60. I want to work at 30. But he's
Right.
not giving us an opportunity. So how can you build enthusiasm when these people are literally dying in office? So, I mean, it's hard.
I think it goes back to the money too, because Clyburn, Scott,
Mm-hmm.
Glitch, um, all of the older people, they're connected to the money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're connected to the people that put money in their pockets, and the party relies on that
Yeah.
because a lot of times money equals votes. A lot of times you got to go locally. You look at Detroit. They said it. Hey, listen, the Democrats have spent more money with this person right here. There was an old show called Boss, right? There's an old show called Boss. It was Kelsey Grammer, and he played like the mayor of Chicago. First season was phenomenal. Second season, yeah, got a little bit too crazy. But it talked about hardcore Chicago politics, and there was a scene in that TV show where basically he had one of his people meeting with local community activists, and they was like, "I can get you 3,000 votes, but it'd be $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be this much. It'd be that much." And they literally sat in a circle and they talked about how what they could bring to the table, but this is what it's going to cost. So that money, you know, it's needed. And the young people don't have those connections to your point, Arika, whereas these old guard, they are connected. And some of
They
them you
ain't
can
giving
say
up to connect.
they're not giving up to connect. Because some of them you can say, like, okay, well, like, they're doing this because they're dedicated to serving their country. Now they're dedicated to serving their family.
Yes, yes.
That's what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, another aspect I think of the younger, the Gen Y, was it Z? Yeah, Gen
Gen Z.
Z,
Yeah.
is for a lot of them, there was no interest in politics because their parents and grandparents had did the struggle. So they've honestly had a relatively conflict-free life and existence. And so a lot of times what draws people into politics is there's a inflection point or something that happens in their life. And it's like some kind of conflict, some kind of strife, some kind of major event that they're like, man, that's wrong. I need to do something to correct it. And a lot of the younger folk have never experienced that
Yeah.
until now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you got these PACs and these lobbyist organizations, shout out to APAC, who can sit there and buy their way into getting the candidate they want into office, right? And it's going to always be problematic, and as young people just aren't really connected with that.
Mm-hmm.
They will be eventually, right? Because these people are
Yeah.
strategic and they'll figure out, okay, how can we buy this generation? But I think the way things are going, like Trump said, hey, you just give me the office, you ain't got to vote no more. And, you look at this upcoming midterm election and can the Democrats flip Congress? And they said, okay, one of the states they have to win is North Carolina. And we know, at least I'm gonna say it, there was
I told y'all the
there
day
was
after.
there was some shenanigans going on in North
I
Carolina.
told y'all the day after. Statewide, Democrats won every office, and he won the presidency.
No,
I still don't believe it, man.
Didn't they remove a bunch of voting centers from the campuses and stuff?
yeah, they did because
they did.
North Carolina has I don't know if they have the most, but they got a lot of college campuses, universities,
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are HBCUs. So they
Yeah.
moved those polling places from those campuses. And then they also changed up the voting days because they used to be able to vote on Sunday. So what was happening is black churches were doing souls to the polls. So they'd be like, listen, once we got a church, we're just gonna go to the polls and vote.
Mm-hmm.
So they got rid of that.